The encounter it was a cold, rainy night. The forest was dark and silent, except for the sound of raindrops falling on the leaves. John walked alone on the narrow road. His car had broken down a few miles back, and his phone had no signal. He wrapped his jacket tightly around himself and kept walking, hoping to find help soon. The woods around him felt strange tonight. He could hear the wind whispering through the trees, and sometimes he thought he saw shadows moving just out of sight. But when he looked closer, nothing was there. Then he heard a noise. It was not like the sound of an animal or the wind. It was something else, a low, deep hum, like a giant machine in the distance. John stopped and looked up at the sky. A flash of light cut through the clouds. He froze. Another flash, brighter this time, followed by a loud boom. The ground shook under his feet, and he almost fell. He stared at the sky and saw something, a strange glowing object falling from above. It came down fast, leaving a trail of blue light behind it. And then it crashed. The sound was loud enough to make his ears ring. A few 100 feet ahead, in the middle of the woods, he saw smoke rising. The trees there glowed faintly blue from the strange light. John stood still for a moment. His heart was racing. Should he run? But his curiosity was stronger than his fear. Slowly, he walked toward the light. When he reached the place, he saw a small crater in the ground. Smoke rose from it, and pieces of burning wood lay all around. In the center of the crater, something was moving. It was not human. John stepped closer, and the figure came into focus. It was a creature, about as tall as a man, but thinner, with long arms and legs. Its skin glowed faintly, a strange silver-blue color, and it was covered in cuts and burns. Its eyes were large, black, and wet, and they seemed to shine in the darkness. The creature struggled to stand, but fell back to its knees. Then it looked at John. Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither of them moved. John's breath caught in his chest. Then, to his surprise, the creature spoke. Its voice was strange, soft, but full of fear. "Spare me." "Human," it said, bowing its head. "Please, spare me. I will serve you forever." John stared at it, too shocked to speak. Did it just beg him for mercy? The creature put its hands together as if to pray. Its whole body trembled. They are coming," it said, looking around nervously. "Please hide me. They must not find me. I will serve you." "Obey you? Just spare me." John stepped back. "What are you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The creature raised its head slightly, enough to show its glowing eyes again. "I was a servant," it said, "but I escaped. They will kill me if they find me. Please, human, help me." Before John could respond, the creature suddenly cried out in pain and grabbed its side. Blue liquid, like glowing blood, leaked from a wound. John hesitated. This thing was strange, alien, but it looked weak, hurt, and scared, and it was begging him. The sound of thunder rolled above, and another flash of light lit up the sky. But this time, the light didn't fade. It stayed, like a spotlight shining down from the clouds. John looked up above the trees. He saw shapes moving. Small, dark figures floated silently in the air, circling the area. The creature gasped and crawled toward John. "Please." "They are here," it whispered. "Hide me, or we both die." John's heart pounded. He looked at the strange, glowing being at his feet. Then he looked back at the sky, where the dark shapes were getting closer. Something told him this was no ordinary night. Without thinking much more, John grabbed the creature by its arm. It was warm and soft, almost like rubber, and pulled it to its feet. "Come on," he said. The creature's eyes widened with surprise. Then gratitude. John half carried, half dragged it through the woods, back toward the road where his broken car was waiting. Behind them, the light in the sky grew brighter, and strange sounds, like distant roars and mechanical whines, echoed through the forest. As they reached the car, John opened the trunk. "Get in," he said. The creature didn't hesitate. It climbed in and curled up inside, hiding its glowing body as best as it could. John shut the trunk just as a bright beam of light swept through the trees behind him. He jumped into the driver's seat and ducked down, watching through the rearview mirror as a strange, silent craft floated just above the forest. Scanning the ground, his hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. He didn't know what was happening, or what he had just gotten himself into. But one thing was clear. Tonight, everything had changed. Asterisk the promise. The rain was heavier now. Thunder rolled through the sky, like the footsteps of some giant above the clouds. John sat in his car, staring at the road ahead, but his mind was elsewhere. His hands trembled on the steering wheel. In his trunk lay a creature that should not exist, something from beyond the stars, hiding like a frightened child. Every few minutes, he dared to glance into the mirror. Behind him, through the dark trees, strange lights still flickered. Shapes floated just above the treetops. Scanning the forest below, they were looking for it. For him. John's heart pounded louder than the rain. He had no plan, only a strange feeling that he couldn't leave. The creature there to die. He turned the key, and the engine sputtered to life. Slowly, trying to stay quiet, he drove back toward town. The headlights cut through the fog and darkness, but the road felt longer than before. When he finally reached his house, a small garage at the edge of town, he parked and quickly got out. He checked the sky. No lights, no shadows. For now, he opened the trunk. The creature was curled up inside, its silver blue skin glowing faintly even in the darkness. Its eyes opened slowly as it sensed the cool air. "Come," John whispered, holding out his hand. The creature hesitated, then crawled out, clutching its wounded side. Its glowing blood still dripped, leaving faint spots on the concrete. John led it into the garage and shut the door behind them. For the first time, they were alone, safe for now. The creature sat on the floor, breathing heavily. Then it looked up at him with those black, wet eyes and spoke in its strange, soft voice. "You saved me," it said. John didn't answer. He just stared at it, still trying to understand what was happening. "Why are they chasing you?" he asked at last. The creature lowered its head. "I was a servant," it said. "I belonged to them. I obeyed them, but I escaped. They cannot allow that. They cannot allow me to choose." It looked at John again, its voice shaking but full of determination. "But I will not go back. Never. If you spare me, I will serve you. Forever. I will give you everything I know. My power, my knowledge, my loyalty. Yours. Only yours." John frowned. "What do you mean, power? What kind of power?" The creature raised its hand weakly. A faint light appeared above its palm, a small orb of energy that floated and spun slowly. Then the orb shot toward a wrench lying on the workbench. The wrench rose into the air, spinning like a toy. John stepped back, his eyes wide. "That's impossible," he whispered. The creature let the wrench drop with a clang. "I can do much more," it said. "I can make you stronger, smarter. I can teach you how to control them, the hunters, even their ships. Everything they have can be yours, if you protect me." It leaned forward, its eyes shining now with something more than fear, something like hope. "Just say the word, and I will serve you forever." John stared at it, his mind racing. But before he could speak, something outside the garage made him freeze. A faint hum, growing louder. He moved to the window and peeked through the blinds. There, at the edge of his driveway, stood two figures at first glance. They looked human, wearing dark coats and hats. But their movements were too smooth, too precise. Their heads turned in perfect unison, scanning the area. One of them raised a strange, glowing device and pointed it toward the garage. John ducked back. "They're here," he whispered. The creature gasped, its body tense. "The hunters," it said. "They found me." The hum grew louder. A sharp knock rattled the garage door. John's heart slammed in his chest. Another knock, harder this time. "We know you are in there," came a voice from outside, cold, mechanical. "Release the fugitive to us, or face elimination." John looked at the creature, who shook its head desperately. "Please," it whispered, "don't give me to them. If they take me, they will kill you too. They cannot let you know what you already know. But with me, you can fight them. You can beat them, I promise." The knocking turned into pounding. John grabbed a crowbar from the wall, his knuckles white around the handle. "How do I fight them?" he asked. The creature's eyes flared brighter. "You must trust me," it said. "I will show you." It pulled open a hidden seam in its own chest. A panel of skin peeled back, revealing a strange shining device embedded inside. "Take it," it said. John hesitated. The pounding grew louder. The door shook violently now. "Hurry!" John reached out and took the device. It was warm and seemed to hum in his hand. "Now," the creature said, its voice rising, "you are no longer just human. You are mine, and I am yours. Together, we can win." The garage door groaned under the force of the hunters outside. A bright crack of light appeared where the metal began to split. John clenched the device in his fist, feeling energy surge through his body. The creature smiled faintly. "You spared me," it said. "Now I keep my promise." The door exploded open, and the hunter stepped inside. But this time, John was ready. The garage door lay in twisted pieces on the ground. Sparks flew from the shattered edges, as the metal glowed faintly red from the impact. And then they stepped inside. Two hunters. At first, they looked like men, tall, thin, dressed, in black coats and wide-brimmed hats that cast shadows over their faces. But the shadows didn't hide what they really were. Their skin was too smooth, too pale, and their movements too perfect. Where their eyes should have been, faint red lights glowed. They stood side by side, scanning the garage silently. The hum from their strange weapons filled the air, low and sharp, like a swarm of angry bees. John held the alien device tightly in his hand. He felt it pulsing, sending heat and energy through his arm. His heart hammered in his chest, but his eyes narrowed. He wasn't just a helpless human anymore. The creature, Zorak, as it had called itself, crouched behind a workbench, its silver-blue skin dimming as if trying to hide. One of the hunters finally spoke. "Human," it said, its voice cold and metallic, "you are harboring property that does not belong to you. Release it, now." John swallowed hard, but stood his ground. "He's not your property," he said. The hunters tilted their heads slightly, as if confused. Then the second one spoke. "Then you will be terminated. Both of you." The first hunter raised its arm. A glowing blade of energy appeared at its wrist, crackling and hissing. That was enough. John raised the alien device in his hand. For a split second, nothing happened. Then a sudden burst of light shot from it, a blazing shield that formed in front of him just as the hunter struck. The blade clashed against the shield with a flash and a deafening crack. Sparks flew, and the hunter staggered back, its head tilting again, this time in surprise. John felt the power surge through him now. The device extended up his arm, wrapping around like armor, glowing with strange symbols. He didn't know how, but somehow he knew what to do. He swung his arm forward. A bolt of blue energy shot out and slammed into the second hunter, sending it crashing into the wall. The first hunter lunged at him, fast as lightning. But John ducked under its blade and slammed his glowing fist into its chest. The hunter flew. Backward, sparks sprang from its body, but they didn't stay down. Both hunters rose at the same time. Their coats burned away to reveal dark, metallic exoskeletons beneath. Their red eyes glowed brighter now, and their movements became faster, more aggressive. One of them leaped onto the workbench, sending tools flying, and aimed its weapon at Zorak. Target, fugitive. It hissed. John didn't hesitate. He threw himself in front of Zorak and raised the shield just as the hunter fired. The beam struck the shield and scattered harmlessly. Get out of here. John shouted at Zorak, but Zorak shook his head. No, he said, his voice stronger now. I will help. Before John could stop him, Zorak stood and held out his hands. The air around them shimmered. Then a shockwave burst from Zorak, sending both hunters flying out of the garage and into the street. For a moment, everything went still, but outside, more lights appeared in the sky. John ran to the doorway and froze. At least 3 more hunters stood at the end of the street, their eyes glowing in the dark. Above them, a ship hovered silently, its underbelly opening to release another wave of enemies. They won't stop, Zorak said, coming to stand beside John. His voice was calm, but heavy with fear. They will burn this whole town to ash if they must. You must choose now. Fight or run. John looked at the ship, at the hunters closing in, at the smoking ruins of his garage. Then he looked down at his glowing arm. He clenched his fist. We fight, he said. Zorak gave him a faint, approving smile. Then listen, Zorak said quickly. That device, it is not just a weapon. It is a key to their own machines. If you can reach their ship, you can shut them all down. But you must hurry. Once the ship's core is locked, even I cannot stop it. John took a deep breath. The hunters outside began to spread out, moving closer, their weapons humming louder. He turned to Zorak. Then tell me what to do. Zorak's eyes gleamed. You already know, he said. Trust it. It is part of you now. It will guide you. The sound of footsteps outside grew louder. John stepped out of the ruined garage and into the street. The rain poured down harder, but the air around him seemed warm, alive with energy. The hunters stopped and stared at him, their red eyes narrowing. Then, without warning, all of them charged at once. John didn't flinch. The device on his arm flared to life, casting brilliant blue light into the night. He raised his hand, and a wave of energy swept forward, knocking 2 hunters flat. Then he leaped toward the closest one and struck it down with a blow that cracked the pavement beneath them. Zorak stayed behind him, sending shimmering blasts of light at the enemies from afar. But the ship above began to descend, its engines roaring like a storm. More hunters dropped from its belly, surrounding them completely. John looked at the glowing device on his arm, then at the ship above. The core, he muttered. Zorak nodded from behind him. Reach the core, he shouted, over the noise, and end this. John took one last breath, then charged straight into the swarm of hunters. A single human against an army, his arm blazing like a star. Tonight, he thought, he would learn what it meant to hunt him. The chase, the street was chaos. Air burned with light and noise. Rain poured down in heavy sheets, hissing against the energy blasts streaking through the night. Hunters swarmed from all sides, their glowing red eyes cutting through the darkness. Above them, the massive alien ship descended lower, its engines roaring like thunder, shaking the ground with every second. John didn't stop running. he crashed. Through the line of hunters, his arm blazing with alien energy, knocking them aside with crackling bolts of light. Behind him, Zorak followed closely, sending shimmering waves of force that slowed the hunters down. "We can't fight them all here," Zorak shouted over the noise. "We need to reach the ship before it locks down its core. Then lead the way." John yelled back. Zorak pointed to the ship overhead. "The core is in the belly," he explained quickly. "There's a hatch at the base, guarded, but not sealed yet. If we get inside, the device on your arm can override their systems." John tightened his grip on the strange weapon. Its blue symbols glowed brighter now, almost as if it was alive, guiding him. They turned a corner into a narrow alley. Blasts of energy struck the walls behind them, sending bricks and sparks flying. One of the hunters leapt from a rooftop, landing in front of them with a deafening crash. Its red blade ignited instantly. Without breaking stride, John raised his hand and unleashed a pulse of energy so strong it sent the hunter flying through the air, smashing into a distant wall. But for every one he knocked down, 3 more appeared. Zorak pointed to a side street ahead. "This way." They sprinted toward it, weaving through dark alleys and empty parking lots. But the hunters were everywhere, dropping from rooftops, emerging from shadows, their mechanical feet striking the pavement. Like hammers at one point, John skidded to a halt as 2 hunters appeared ahead, blocking the path. Their weapons glowed as they charged toward him. John took a deep breath, raised his glowing arm, and slammed it into the ground. A shockwave of blue light shot outward, shattering the street and sending the hunters tumbling backward. Zorak stumbled, slightly behind him, but managed to stay upright. "You're learning fast," Zorak said, almost impressed. "Not fast enough," John muttered, already moving again. They reached the edge of town, an open field where the ship hovered low over the earth. Its underbelly glowed with strange symbols. Faint blue lights and long cables dangled from it, swaying in the wind. At the center of the ship's belly was the hatch. It looked like a dark oval door, surrounded by pulsing red lights. But between them and the hatch stood at least a dozen hunters, waiting silently, their weapons ready. John stopped for a second, catching his breath. "Can we get through them?" he asked. Zorak's eyes narrowed. "We must," he said simply. "There is no other way." John nodded. The hunters began to advance. And then John charged. He sprinted straight toward the line of hunters, his glowing arm cutting through the rain. Like a comet, the first hunter swung at him, but John ducked low and drove his fist into its chest, sending it flying backward. Another came from his left. He blocked its blade with his shield and countered with a blast of energy that split it in half. But the hunters didn't stop. They kept coming, faster now, striking at him from all sides. Zorak followed closely, using his own powers to push them back. Shimmering walls of force, bright flashes of light that disoriented their enemies. One hunter managed to get close and slashed at John's side. Pain shot through him, but he gritted his teeth and kept moving. They were only a few meters from the hatch now. But suddenly, a shadow fell over them. The ground shook violently. John looked up and saw something even worse. A much larger figure dropped from the ship, landing with a massive crash that sent shockwaves through the field. It was at least twice the size of the hunters, towering, armored head to toe, its red eyes blazing like fire. In its hand, it carried a massive blade crackling with energy. Zorak froze. "The Enforcer," he whispered. "Their strongest weapon. It guards the core." The Enforcer raised its blade and pointed it at John. "Fugitive detected," it said in a deep, metallic voice. "Termination required." John's whole body tensed. The hunters stopped moving, forming a circle around him and the Enforcer, as if eager to watch the fight. John glanced at Zorak. Any advice? Zorak shook his head slowly. Survive, he said. The enforcer struck. First, impossibly fast for its size. Its blade came down with a blinding flash, but John raised his shield just in time. The impact sent him sliding backward, his boots carving deep lines in the mud. Before he could recover, the enforcer swung again. This time, the shockwave from the strike shattered the ground and sent John sprawling. The hunters around them began to close in, their weapons humming louder. John struggled to his feet, breathing hard. But then the device on his arm flared brighter than ever before. Strange symbols appeared in the air around him, glowing and spinning, and his entire body felt lighter, stronger, faster. The enforcer raised its blade for the final strike. John moved. He darted forward, faster than he thought possible, and slammed his glowing fist into the enforcer's chest. For a second, nothing happened. Then the enforcer's armor cracked, light spilled from the fracture, and it staggered back. John didn't stop. He struck again and again, each blow stronger than the last. Finally, with one last burst of energy, he drove his hand deep into the enforcer's core. There was a blinding flash, and then silence. Enforcer fell to its knees, then collapsed completely, its lights fading. The hunters around them froze. For the first time, John saw fear in their red eyes. Zorak stepped up beside him. "The hatch," he said. "It's open now, go." John turned toward the ship, where the dark oval door had begun to slide open, revealing a faint blue glow inside. He tightened his fist, his arm still burning with power, and ran toward it, ready to face whatever waited within. Behind him, the hunters began to recover, but this time they hesitated. And above him, the ship's core began to hum louder, sensing that the real battle was only just beginning. The truth, the hatch opened with a deep, mechanical hiss. A rush of cold, dry air blew outward as John stepped inside. World outside faded behind him. The rain, the hunters, even the wreck of the enforcer, all drowned out by the strange hum that filled the belly of the ship. Inside, the walls glowed faintly blue, covered in strange symbols and pulsing veins of light. The floor was smooth, metallic, but somehow warm under his feet. Zorak limped in behind him, clutching his side. "Hurry," he urged. "The core is near, but the truth, you must see it for yourself." John gave him a quick glance. The truth? What truth? But Zorak only shook his head, his black eyes full of something John couldn't read. Fear? Regret? The hatch closed behind them with a heavy clang, locking out the hunters. For the first time in hours, the silence almost hurt. John tightened his fist, the device on his arm glowing brighter now, as if sensing the core ahead. They walked deeper into the ship, down a long curved corridor. The walls around them began to change. Smooth metal became transparent panels, and through them John saw strange sights. Rows of glowing pods lined the walls beyond the glass. Inside them floated beings of every shape and size, asleep or unconscious. Some looked like Zorak. Others were completely alien, creatures John could barely understand, suspended in blue liquid, wires and tubes piercing their bodies. John stopped, staring in shock. "What is this?" Zorak's voice was low, almost a whisper. "The prison," he said. "This is what they do to all who resist, all who fail to serve. These are the ones who refuse to bow." John felt a chill run through him. Hundreds of pods, thousands maybe, all filled with life, trapped. He forced himself to keep moving, though the sight stayed in his mind. At the end of the corridor stood a massive door, its edges lined with spinning lights. Symbols above it flared to life as John approached, and the device on his arm pulsed in response. The door slowly opened. Beyond it was the core. The room was vast and circular, with a glowing sphere of light floating at its center. Thick cables ran from the sphere into the walls and ceiling, humming with power. The sphere itself pulsed like a heartbeat, throwing long shadows across the floor. John stepped closer. "This is it," Zorak said quietly. "Their power. Their memory, their mind. Everything flows from here. You must shut it down. Only you can." But something was wrong. The closer John got, the heavier the air felt. His chest tightened. His head ached, and strange whispers filled his ears. He froze when he saw what lay at the base of the sphere. A figure, not a hunter. Not a machine. It was human. A man, his arms and legs bound by glowing chains, his body suspended in midair. His eyes were closed, but his mouth moved, whispering words John couldn't understand. The chains ran directly into the core. John's breath caught. "What is this?" Zorak stood behind him, his voice hollow. "The truth," he said. John turned, anger rising in his chest. "You said this was just a weapon, just a machine. But this is a person." Zorak looked at the man with deep sadness. "He is the key," Zorak said softly. "Long ago, they captured him, the first human who fought back. They used him to power the core. His mind holds their secrets. His strength feeds their ships. He is the reason they came here at all." John stared in horror. The man's eyes opened and locked on his. They were bright blue, glowing like the sphere. He spoke, his voice weak but clear. "Destroy it while you still can," he said. John stepped closer. "Who are you?" The man gave a faint, bitter smile. "The first," he whispered. The whispers around John grew louder now, filling his head, pulling at his thoughts. He staggered back, clutching his temple. What's happening to me?" Zorak's eyes widened. "The core is testing you," he said. "It knows you can destroy it. It is afraid, but it will try to confuse you, to turn you, to make you doubt." John looked at the man bound to the sphere, his face twisted with pain. Then he looked at the device on his arm, now glowing as bright as the core itself. "If I destroy it," John began slowly, "what happens to him?" Zorak hesitated. "He may not survive," Zorak admitted. "But if you don't, neither will you. Neither will your world. The hunters will never stop. The ship will never leave. You must choose." John clenched his fist, feeling the heat of the device burning his skin. The whispers grew louder now, tempting him, promising power, showing him visions of himself ruling over cities, commanding fleets, becoming more than human. He shook his head, trying to clear his mind. But then the man in the chains spoke again, louder this time. "Do it," he gasped. "Destroy it. End them. All." The sphere pulsed angrily, sending a shockwave through the room. The chains tightened around the man, making him cry out. Zorak took a step back, shielding his eyes from the blinding light. "John!" he shouted. "Now!" The whispers became a scream in his mind. John raised his arm. The device flared, its symbols blazing brighter than ever. For a moment, he saw everything. The hunters, the ship, the pods full of prisoners, the entire network that stretched far beyond Earth. And then, silence. He struck. The light from his arm shot into the core. Cracking its surface. The sphere shattered in a brilliant explosion of blue and white, and the shockwave knocked him off his feet. When the light faded, the room was quiet. The chains hung loose. The man lay still, his eyes closed. John fell to his knees, breathing hard. Zorak stood beside him, staring at the broken core. "You did it," Zorak said, his voice full of awe. But John didn't feel victorious. He looked at the man first, lying motionless at the base of the shattered sphere. And somewhere deep in the ship, Alarms began to wail, because though the core was destroyed, something else had awakened. Something worse. The final stand, the alarm screamed through the ship like a chorus of sirens, rising and falling in sharp waves. John stood over the shattered core, his chest heaving, his arm still glowing faintly from the strike. The sphere lay in pieces around him, its strange energy fading into the floor. The bound man, the first, lay still, his glowing eyes now dim. Zorak stepped closer and crouched beside the man, pressing two of his thin fingers to the man's neck. "He is alive," Zorak said after a long moment. "But barely." John let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He looked around. The room was quiet, now too quiet. The ship's walls, which moments ago had been glowing faintly blue, now flickered with a darker red light. The symbols along the walls twisted into strange, angry patterns. Zorak straightened slowly, his black eyes fixed on the ceiling. "It is awake now," he murmured. John turned to him. "What's awake?" Before Zorak could answer, the entire ship shook violently. A low, deep voice, not like the hunters, not like anything John had heard before, echoed through the chamber. "Human, you have broken my chains? Yet you are still mine." John froze. The voice didn't seem to come from any single place. It was everywhere. It rattled his bones and dug into his mind. Zorak's face was pale, his body trembling. "The Master," he whispered. The ship itself, its true mind, was hidden beyond the core. "You freed it." John swallowed hard. "You're saying we made it worse?" Zorak didn't answer. The ground cracked beneath them. From the far end of the chamber, a dark shape began to emerge, a towering figure, made entirely of black metal and light. It was not like the hunters, or even the enforcer. It was something older, something much more powerful. Its form shifted as it stepped forward, sometimes human, sometimes beast, sometimes nothing John could even name. Its eyes, if they were eyes, were burning white stars. "You are brave." "Human," the voice rumbled, "but foolish. You destroyed my servant, freed my prisoner, but you cannot destroy me. I am not a machine. I am not a slave. I am the one who built them all." John raised his arm, feeling the device pulse faintly, but weaker than before. The Master laughed, a sound like grinding metal and cracking stone. "That toy will not save you now. It was made by me for me. You hold my power in your hand, and you think yourself strong? You are nothing but another pawn." John gritted his teeth, stepping between the Master and Zorak. "Maybe," John shouted, "but even a pawn can take down the king." The Master's shape shimmered, and one long arm shot forward, striking the ground where John had been standing. He rolled to the side just in time, but the floor cracked and collapsed under the force. Zorak dragged the unconscious man to safety, but his eyes were wide with terror. "You cannot fight it here," Zorak shouted over the noise. "The device is drained. You will die." John stared at the glowing symbols on his arm. They flickered weakly now, but he felt something deeper, a faint heat still buried inside. He took a breath. "I'm not giving up," he said. The Master's voice grew louder, more furious. "Then you will die screaming." The ship itself began to change. The walls folded inward, the lights dimmed, and the air grew heavy, almost impossible to breathe. More hunters emerged from the shadows, their eyes burning red, their weapons ready. But this time, John didn't wait. He charged out his fist, struck the first hunter with a burst of energy that sent it flying into the wall. The others rushed him, but he moved faster now, each strike stronger than the last. The device on his arm flared, regaining its light with every hit. Zorak raised his hands, creating shimmering barriers to block the hunters from reaching the unconscious. "Man, John," Zorak called, "you cannot defeat it here. You must reach the heart." John ducked under a hunter's blade, blasting it apart with a flash of light. "What heart?" He shouted back. Zorak's voice shook. "The ship's real. Heart, it's deep below. The core was only a lock. The heart is its life. Destroy it, and the master dies with it." The master's laughter roared above them. "You will never reach it. No human has. And none ever will." John looked at the black figure towering above him, then at Zorak, then at the unconscious man on the floor. He tightened his fist and turned toward the floor, where cracks were already forming from the battle. "Then I'll make my own way," he muttered. He slammed his glowing hand into the ground. The floor split open in a blaze of light, and John fell through. He landed hard in darkness, somewhere far below the main chamber. The walls here were alive, throbbing like veins, glowing faintly red. The air smelled of ozone and ash. Ahead of him lay a long corridor, and at the end of it he could see a faint, beating light. The heart dot behind him, the master's voice thundered again, now angrier, darker. "You dare to touch me, foolish insect. I will tear your mind apart." The ground shook, and parts of the ceiling collapsed. As John ran forward, shadows moved in the corners, more hunters. But different now, twisted, larger, faster. John pushed himself harder, blasting them aside as he ran. His chest burned, his arms ached, but the device glowed brighter than ever. As he neared the end of the corridor, the heart came into full view. It floated in a massive cavern, a great sphere of black and red, with tendrils stretching into every part of the ship. It pulsed slowly, each beat sending a wave of power through the air. John stopped at the edge, staring up at it. The whispers in his head returned, louder now, pleading, threatening, promising. "Strike me down, and you destroy everything. Even yourself," the master hissed. "But if you kneel, if you join me, you can have it all. All worlds, all power, all life. Yours." John closed his eyes for a moment, breathing hard. When he opened them, his arm blazed with light. "No," he said quietly, and he leapt. He soared through the air and drove his glowing fist straight into the heart. The cavern erupted in light, and the world exploded around him. The decision light, blinding light. John felt himself suspended in it, weightless, formless, as if he were falling and flying at the same time. He didn't know if seconds or hours passed. The moment his fist struck the heart, the entire ship roared like a wounded beast. The walls cracked, the tendrils recoiled, the whispers in his mind shrieked and scattered like shattered glass. And yet, he was still here. His arm burned where the device flared against his skin. The symbols spun faster and faster, each one cutting deeper into his mind. And then, silence. The light dimmed, and he found himself standing on what looked like a platform of black glass, floating in endless space. Above him hung the shattered heart, fractured, bleeding light, but not yet dead. A figure emerged from the shards, the master. But now it was different. Its towering form was cracked and broken, pieces of light leaking from its body. Its voice no longer thundered, but rasped, hollow and faint. "You have broken me. Human," it said, "but you are broken too. You cannot leave this place. You cannot win." John's chest heaved. He tightened his fist, even though the light from the device was fading now. "I'm still standing," he said through gritted teeth. The master's eyes, those blazing white stars, flickered for the first time. "You destroyed the heart, but it was never only mine. It is yours now too. The device bound you to it. If you kill me, you kill yourself." John froze. He looked at his arm, and for the first time noticed that the veins in his skin glowed faintly, pulsing in time with the shattered heart above, that the realization sank in like ice. The master raised its broken head and gave something that almost sounded like a laugh. You feel it, don't you? This ship, this power, it is alive in you now. You can take it, rebuild it, rule it, or destroy it, and die with it. John swallowed hard. He looked into the shards of the heart. Through them, he saw images. The hunters collapsing, their red eyes flickering out. The pods opening, prisoners stumbling out of their prisons. But also, the sky above Earth filled with dark ships, waiting beyond the clouds. If he took the power, he could stop them all. Or he could end it here. Zorak's voice echoed faintly in his memory. You must choose. Behind him, he heard another sound, soft footsteps. He turned. It was the man. The first. His chains were gone now. His eyes still glowed faintly blue, but his face was calm. You have done what I could not, the man said quietly. John stared at him. If I destroy it? He began, but his voice faltered. The man nodded slowly. You die, he said, but so does it, forever. John looked at the master, then at the man. What if I take it? He asked. The man's expression darkened. Then you become it? He said, you wear the crown, but you lose yourself. It will never let you go. The master's voice cut through the silence, weaker now, but still sharp. You already know what you want, human. Take it. Take the power. Rule over them all. You are no hero. You are no savior. You are like me. The heart pulsed faintly, waiting. John stood there, his hands shaking. He closed his eyes. He thought of Zorak, who had begged him to fight, of the prisoners in the pods, of his world, his home, waiting above. And then he made his choice. He opened his eyes and smiled faintly. No, he said softly. I'm not like you. The master's form stiffened, its light flaring one last time. You fool. But John raised his glowing fist, now blazing brighter than ever, and slammed it into the heart one final time. The light swallowed everything. He felt his body burn, but he didn't cry out. The whispers in his mind fell silent. The symbols on his skin dissolved into nothing. And then darkness. When he woke, it was raining. He lay on the wet grass outside the ship, which now lay in ruins. Just a husk of twisted metal. The sky above was clear again, stars shining faintly through the clouds. The hunters were gone. The ships above were gone. And the air was quiet. He tried to move, but his limbs felt heavy, weak. Then a shape appeared beside him. Zorak. The alien knelt, his black eyes watching him closely. You did it, Zorak said softly. John coughed, trying to speak, but Zorak shook his head. Rest, he said. You are free now. We all are. Around them, former prisoners, creatures of every shape and color, emerged from the woods, looking at the wreckage with cautious hope. John lay back, staring at the stars. He felt the faint hum of the device on his arm, but it was fading. Now, his body was just his own again. Zorak stood and looked down at him. You spared me, he said quietly, and you saved them all. From now on, you will not be forgotten. John gave a weak smile. Good, he murmured. Just don't make me king of the galaxy or something. Zorak tilted his head, almost amused. You could have been, he said. John closed his eyes, feeling sleep take him. But just before darkness claimed him completely, he whispered, I'd rather just be human. Above him, the stars shone, a little brighter, and somewhere far away, the last echo of the master's voice finally faded into silence. The end.